Most business owners are using AI for basic tasks like emails. The ones that are getting ahead, they're using it to transform how they work. I'm Tania Gomez. 6 months ago, I didn't know the difference between ChatGPT and a chatbot. Now I'm learning from AI experts, testing tools in real businesses, and sharing everything that works. Because AI won't replace you, but someone using AI will. This is the AI Apprentice. Join our free community of practice at providercollective.com.au, where hundreds of business owners are learning together. We start as AI apprentices, but we leave as masters. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the AI Apprentice. My name is Tania Gomez, and today I'm joined by Will, one of the founders of OptieaseAI. Morning, Will. How are you?
Good morning. I'm excellent, Tania. How are you going?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited to talk to you today. Our topic is going to be around prompting 101, how to talk so AI will listen, which is something I'm excited about because I'm starting to see after, playing around with ChatGPT for what feels like, maybe it's about a year now, it's starting to really realize that it is quality in, quality out, and it's all about how you can actually talk to ChatGPT, how you prompt with it, what you say actually really does give you a better output. Before we jump into that, do you want to give me a quick overview into what you do at OptieaseAI and a little bit of background about you and the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So OptieaseAI is basically an AI and automation consultancy for NDIS and healthcare. We build custom systems for participants, carers, as well as healthcare professionals like allied health. And we usually sit down and we figure out what the main problems are. That could be to do with document processing, rostering, financial side of things in terms of reporting. And we really sit down and build systems that can help save time, increase efficiency, and really transform businesses in a lot of cases.
Wonderful. Great. So let's start talking about prompting. Why do you think that so many people struggle to get good results from AI tools like ChatGPT?
I think the main struggle that people have is they speak to ChatGPT a bit like a friend. I think that's a lot of the thing we've come across is that we like talking very casually and sort of in a conversational tone. And obviously it's an LLM that can understand that. But if it's more like an employee, you're not going to just tell your employee, oh, I just vaguely do this. You're going to tell them a set of things that they're actually supposed to get done, sort of more structured, and say, this is sort of the checklist that you need to go through, have specific set goals, and then they can actually go and do their job. So I would say ChatGPT is very similar to that, where you can talk to it like a friend. But if you want to get the best results out of it, you're going to have to set it some goals. You're going to have to speak to it in a way that you're going to maximize the output that it gives.
That's a really good analogy. And I often think about when you're inducting a new employee, all the background details you have to give them. And I guess that's really similar with ChatGPT. Like if you just say, reply to this email, you're going to get a very average stock standard response. But if you give it a whole lot of information about here's the context, here's the background, here's the 15 email chains back and forth, here's 10 other examples of emails that I've sent before that I like the sound of, now write me a response, it's going to be much more superior.
Exactly right. It needs to know what it's trying to achieve. It's like an employee that knows everything except what it needs to do. So you got to act like that, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've used offshore staff for many, many years, about 15 plus years I've used offshore staff. And I do often have people ask me how to get good results of offshore staff, because similar to AI, they like to say yes. They like to say, yep, I can do that for you. But then the results don't always come because maybe the context isn't there. So I guess reframing AI to be like, okay, this person's brand new, they don't know anything about our business, and going through a process of uploading your information, talking to it about what you want. One of the things that I do, because I get quite frustrated with ChatGPT, I use a few AI, but I use Claude for writing, ChatGPT for like custom GPT type stuff. I use NotebookLM when I'm studying to try and have or when I'm doing a whole lot of kind of research into something. But we'll use the word ChatGPT because I think everyone's kind of most familiar with that. But I kind of get really frustrated when I've done a whole lot of work and it doesn't remember. And so like if I'm writing blog questions or if I'm writing podcast questions like the questions here today, I will, it'll be really great for the first set. And then you'll say, okay, now do it on this topic, and you'll get rubbish again. And so something I started doing is writing checklists. So the first thing before each prompt is for it to come up with what success look like. So write me 10 questions or 10 criteria of what an amazing podcast question would be, and it'll write me criteria. And then when it's written me something, I'll say, now mark it against that criteria, and always save it as like a Word document so I can upload it back and kind of always have a reference point. That's kind of been a bit of a hack that I've used. What are some other hacks that you've seen work that really is the difference between like an average prompt and I guess a really great outcome?
There's a few different ones that come to mind. I would say number one would be act as. Act as is really useful because you can basically say, this is the employee you're supposed to be. So going back to that employee analogy, ChatGPT knows what most employees in a company are supposed to do. So if you say, act as my marketing manager who knows everything about my company, you give some details about the company, then it's going to be way more engaged in that sort of marketing space, and it's going to know the sort of background on the broad position that it's supposed to be taking up. So that's certainly one, as well as some other frameworks. So in preparing for this, I actually researched a few different ways that people are looking at them, as well as created my own. Most of them basically come down to setting it an objective, a goal, telling it to act as something, but also giving it enough of those information and examples, as you mentioned previously, to try and help it have that context that it needs to actually answer your questions or your queries.
Yeah. And how do you teach businesses to think about prompting, I guess, in a bit of a more systematic way?
I would say trying to give some frameworks. So, I mean, I literally wrote a prompt that was like, hey, can you help me create a framework that breaks down my own prompting that I've given to you? And it came up with this one here. So I'll just quickly read out what it said. Objective, context, format, examples, and check. Those are the 5 dot points that it gave to me and said that they were the most important based on my prompting. But I've also found other ones like the kernel framework, which is basically trying to keep it short and succinct, keep it simple, easy to verify, reproducible results. So that's basically just trying to keep it consistent. Narrowing the scope, which is back to that goal setting. Some explicit constraints. So that's basically trying to keep it this is what you want to do. This is what you don't want it to do. That's one of the key points that people also don't think about, is this is what you don't want the AI to do. So as much as you don't want an employee to go and start swearing or bad-mouthing your company, you don't want ChatGPT to start hallucinating things or getting data that is not relevant to what you're trying to do. And then obviously L is the logical structure in the kernel framework that I've found. And that's basically context, task, constraints, and then format.
Can you give us some examples of using those frameworks of, let's I don't know, what's a common prompt that people might use, and let's break it down using those frameworks so they have a bit of an example.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if we go back to my marketing example from before, if you're uploading some information and you want it to write a copy on that, but every business is different. So you want the copy to be specifically tailored to what your business is doing. So you want your value proposition to be the key part or the differentiating factor of your business. You want that to be the key thing that the AI focuses on. So if you're looking at context building, you might start off the prompt by saying, this is what my business does. We are an NDIS provider who provides these services, and this is our point of difference. So make it very clear to the AI what the point of difference is. The second point would be, and I would even put like a line and separate these into 4 different dot points. I would say, this is the task you're set to do. I want you to create a copy for this post that I'm going to put on Instagram and Facebook, and I want you to have this sort of a goal. These are the constraints, so that's the third dot point. I want you to not use any of this language, this language, and I only want you to use this language. So you might even be able to upload your branding guidelines if you have a document like that, and that might have some of the example words that you like to use in your social media posts. And then in terms of the format, I mean, it's probably already gathered by now that you're posting it on Instagram or Facebook, but it might be able to give you 2 separate ones based on Instagram audiences and Facebook audiences. So say, give me an output that is fit for Instagram as well as one that is fit for Facebook. So breaking it down into those 4 points. And I mean, when I'm prompting, I always do the shift enter to try and space it out so that I can see visually the 4 different parts that I'm actually using there.
Yeah, that's really clever. And how, like, M dashes have made a huge entrance into our world. I don't think we'd ever used an M dash before. Is there a trick to remove M dashes and I guess that formulaic, overly polished X, this isn't this, it is this kind of sentence structure that we see a lot in when people are using AI for things like social media?
Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on the model you're using, but in terms of ChatGPT, which is the one people are most familiar with, you basically can create your own GPT, as you were talking about earlier. And in that, you will change the prompting of the AI. And maybe we can link it in this podcast description, but I've seen an excellent prompt that basically removes M dashes, tries to make ChatGPT sound as human as possible. And as long as you change that in like the overarching prompting of that GPT that you're working on, then those sort of M dashes and the robotics feeling of ChatGPT should be fixed. And obviously, I mean, it's not 100%. Sometimes it will try and break out of it and break back into ChatGPT mode. But I found that you can change the way the GPT speaks if you change that like overarching prompting. Like I know JJ, my business partner, he's changed his ChatGPT to call him marketing master and stuff like that. And it will talk to him like it's just his friend or whatnot, which I mean is probably not good in terms of what I was talking about earlier with you're not supposed to treat it as a friend, but that's how ChatGPT responds to him, and that's how he's set his ChatGPT up.
Yeah. And for people who aren't familiar with what a custom GPT is, can you just break down what the difference between a GPT, like ChatGPT, and a custom GPT is?
Well, I would say NotebookLM might be probably a better version, or my understanding is better in that for creating a custom GPT. You're basically uploading a database of information that you want the AI model to understand and use, and you don't want it to use anything else but that. So, I mean, the problem with ChatGPT is it's an open server, so you can't upload any personal information to those GPTs without it risking being leaked. And in the healthcare space, it's just illegal. So you're probably more looking towards making those custom GPTs, those employees, rather than uploading your whole database. We have come across people who have created custom GPTs by uploading their whole database of participant information. And it's been a bit of you cannot do that. So I would say, yeah, it's pretty much just making sure that you're using a database of information that is specific to what your needs are, and prompting ChatGPT to only use that information rather than just looking across the whole web and being extremely broad in its knowledge base.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there are lots of different models out there. There's OpenLM, which is a Google product. There is ChatGPT, there is Claude, there's Grok. Is there other one?
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek, yeah, the Chinese DeepSeek. Why are there so many? And are these just different brand names? Do they do the same thing?
They do very similar things. Like even within ChatGPT, you've got ChatGPT models out the wazoo. You've got all the way from 1 through 5, plus the minis, plus the research versions. Like there's a lot of different models. And each one of them has different strengths and weaknesses. So, I mean, for example, we just were playing around with Chrome's new server that you can host on your own computer. So you can actually host an AI and it will run, you basically download the whole database that the AI has, which is pretty small. I think it's around 20 gigabytes. And then you can run that AI on your computer offline. So, I mean, if you're looking at the different models, each one of them uses a different database and it has those overarching promptings with heat and temperature and different metrics in it set at different levels. So as I was saying with our mini that we were playing around with, that is the sort of model that you can upload participant information with because it's not going away, it's not going online. But the only problem is that it has a very limited database. It's not going to be up to date with the most recent changes to the laws and any other like trends or patterns that are happening in the NDIS space. But something like the old ChatGPT or the new ChatGPT, again, will have different levels of understanding based on the databases that it has been fed.
Yeah, okay. And if someone is starting out using AI for the first time, is there, should they start with ChatGPT? Does it really matter? Is it just about using something, or is there like levels of difficulty in different models?
Levels of difficulty, I don't know if I would call it difficulty as much as depending on what you want will depend on what model you want to use. And I don't know off the top of my head what are the strengths and weaknesses of each of the models I mean, if we just look at ChatGPT, I know Jax was talking about how he's like, oh, I will never use ChatGPT 5 ever again. ChatGPT 5 mini is just better in every way. So there are those models that are just superior, and there are those that are just directly inferior. But for the most part, they're just different based on what you want to do. So I believe it's Perplexity is really good at grammar and English and spelling and writing. ChatGPT might be better at more summarizing things. And I don't know what your experiences with the different models are, but different models will just, if you ask it the exact same question with the exact same data, it will give you completely different answers. So depending on what you want, play around with them. I would say there's no right place to start. ChatGPT is probably the easiest because everyone knows it. It's pretty quick and easy to set up. But I mean, Gemini is great. All of the different Google models. You could even use Copilot. They're all good for different things. I would say just playing around with them is a lot of fun for sure.
And what about paid versus free? There seems to be a free model for everything. Is a paid model safer than a free model? And how do you determine which you want to pay for?
I would say safer. By that, do you mean like your data is safe?
Yeah.
I don't know of any model that you can host. I don't know if you know, but that won't send information overseas. So I would say that none of them are safe from the whole you're going to lose your data overseas and be breaking the law. But unless you're hosting it on your own servers somehow, or the model is basically promising that they won't send it overseas, it's the difference between paid and free is not going to be that material. I mean, for ChatGPT, you'll get access to a better model, but it's still going to be sending your personal data overseas. But I mean, we've worked with the Chrome one, which is the little Chrome Mini. I believe that one's free, but again, the model is very small. So even if you are uploading information, it's not going to be able to do nearly as much as what the ChatGPT or the Grok or the DeepSeek are doing on their own big service in the USA or in India or wherever else they're being hosted.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've talked a few times about it not being safe and sending data overseas. And obviously in Australia, we have the Privacy Act and privacy standards that say that especially health records need to be hosted and stored in Australia. If someone does want to use ChatGPT and they are a disability or a healthcare provider, what can they do as far as prompting goes to protect their data? Is it just simply a matter of never uploading participant details, or is it de-identifying? I guess what's best practice look like?
Yeah, so I mean, what we've found is you can just de-identify, and that should be sufficient. In de-identification, we've actually been developing a redact sort of software that will basically go through and remove all of those personal information like name, date of birth, and information. And we're going to be basically releasing that and making it free for people to use. Try it out, because we're not 100% sure of it, but basically the idea behind the redacts model is you can upload those pieces of information. We won't store them on any server. As soon as you close that program down, the data will be gone again. But what that will allow is for you to put in a document that has personal information. It will then remove that information, and then you can go and upload that to ChatGPT or whatever else models you're using, and that should be sufficient. In terms of other methods, you can look to host your own server for these different models, and that is a bit arduous and a bit techy, but it's the sort of thing where once you've got it set up, it shouldn't be too much of a hassle. And you can basically upload any information, and that will obviously all be stored in Australia, and you won't need to worry about the privacy laws.
So for someone who isn't techie, what does it mean as far as hosting your own server? What does that actually mean?
So the way that ChatGPT and other models work is they have the AI, and then the database behind it is being stored in some sort of data center that is either in America or India or wherever else, somewhere overseas. And if you upload any personal information, as soon as that information gets uploaded to ChatGPT, etc., that's going to be sent straight overseas, and you're going to be in breach. The way to get around this is that you want your database to be stored in Australia, because that is the safer way, and that's what will get you past those audits. And the way you can do that is by setting up your own personal server. And I mean, in the short term, that's probably going to be the only solution for people, is either redacting the information or setting up your own server in Australia. But in the long term, it's almost guaranteed that there will be online models that you'll be able to use, like ChatGPT, who will have servers that are in Australia, and you can probably change your policy or change your account to only host that information here. But at the moment, I haven't seen any models that are actually offering that, and most likely they will be paid. But I'm not sure. We'll have to see where that goes in the next few years. But for now, it'll be either hosting or redacting as the only solutions to it.
So does that mean if for disability and healthcare providers, or anyone, I guess, that handles sensitive information, is it better then that they use AI for things like marketing, business operations, those type of things, as opposed to, reviewing case notes, proofreading case notes, uploading case notes, things that are inherently have a lot of sensitive personal information in them.
Yeah, absolutely. In the short term, the focus should be on those first few that you mentioned, with marketing, business development, that sort of side of things. But I mean, that's what OptieaseAI we're trying to do. We're trying to bring the whole technology in this space forwards, because we want people to be passing their case notes through AI, and we want people to be trying to automate their processes as much as possible, because it's one of the biggest bottlenecks, and it's going to be an increasingly important aspect of people's businesses to focus on. So yeah, I think short term, unless you're working with another provider, perhaps like OptieaseAI, perhaps like someone else who can set up a hosted server for you, keep all personal information away from that and just suck it up, I guess, is the real answer. I mean, I think some CRMs nowadays are sort of trying to do that whole AI case notes and whatnot, and those people are all on AWS. They'll be hosting them in Australia, so that should be all fine. But in terms of those online models, definitely keeping personal information away from there is very important.
Yeah. So if we go back to prompting, I've kind of taken you off track a little bit, but it was a very interesting diversion. If we go back to prompting for a second, I've seen a lot spoken about recently about AI slop, and we're kind of, back to this thing of everything sounding really similar, and people being, if you go to LinkedIn these days and you have a look, you can, at least I can really tell. And I've stopped using AI for the most part for my posts on LinkedIn, because I did see that there's, there's hallmarks or signs that of when AI is being used, and sometimes that's good and sometimes it's not. How can someone avoid all of their posts sounding the same as everybody else's?
I mean, you can write them yourself. I would say, and whenever I use AI, I never copy and paste ever. I use AI exclusively for ideas, ideation, that sort of brainstorming phase. So, I mean, with my LinkedIn posts, sometimes I will write up the whole post as a draft, upload it to AI. It might have a few good ideas, and then I'll basically add those in. I don't really do the copy paste directly in, simply because AI, if you just copy and paste the whole thing and then make edits, it's still going to have the structure of the AI. But if you upload the human version, get the AI to have a look at it, make some small edits, and then you can re-edit it again, you're going to be saving yourself from that whole restructuring in the form of AI that people are probably coming across a fair bit, and way too much at the moment. I mean, I've been giving JJ grief because he posted a thing that I thought looked like AI, because it was just simply too long and too well structured. Turns out he actually did write that himself, so props to him. But I mean, no one's really safe. Even if you are writing it yourself, you still might be sort of alleged for AI slop.
Yeah, that's true. I do things like I'll write the post myself and then be like, give me a better hook, or use that checklist that we created earlier to rate this out of 10, and where can I strengthen the post. As a teacher by background myself, I really like rating things, and I really like scoring. So I really like it as that critical thinking of rate this post out of 10, and it'll say it's a 6, and I'll be like, oh, okay, how do I get it to a 10? And it'll give me some suggestions, as opposed to it writing the post for me. And I've been doing some experiments the last little while using Claude. I was told that Claude is a lot better for writing. And so I've been putting the same instructions into ChatGPT and Claude. And I've been finding that Claude naturally sounds, I guess, more like me. And when you give it directions, it seems to hold on to those directions a little bit longer, and kind of learns your tone. It also asks really good questions. So if I write something and say, I want this to sound more like me. It won't just rewrite it. It'll say, okay, well, here's 5 questions for me to learn how to sound more like you. And it'll ask me questions, and then we can prompt back and forth to kind of create that tone guide or that style guide of how does a post from Tania supposed to sound. I found that really quite helpful.
Yeah, I would 100% say the questions that you're talking about there, really, really cool. So you can actually ask ChatGPT to ask you questions to help it like understand you better or understand what you're trying to achieve better. And that's another strategy that I use as well. So I might put my whole prompt and say, what information do you need to increase this or make this a better version of what it is? And sort of actually prompting it to do those question asking that you're talking about. You can get ChatGPT or whatever else model to actually focus on that, to try and understand you better rather than just, here's the answer, and just very robotic about it, and have a bit more of a conversation or a bit more of a be a bit more consultanty with them, I guess.
Yeah. That's good advice too. Lastly, when we're talking about, prompts, I've come across some prompt generators. I've come across Prompt Cowboy is one that someone sent me, and I'm sure there's many others. And I think what's interesting if you're new to prompting about using something like that is it does actually show you how to break down a prompt. Have you used prompt generators before?
I have not used prompt generators very much. I've heard of them and had a bit of a play around, but I'm not very well versed in them. I mostly just try and write the prompts using my sort of loose structure that I have.
Yeah. I was sent it by a friend, and I was like, oh, so I played around for a little while with a few different prompt generators. I don't use them like every time, but I find that it's really helpful if I'm just not getting what I want out of ChatGPT. If I've asked like 4 or 5 times and there's still the outcomes not coming, then I kind of go back to, okay, my prompt's obviously not working here. Whatever I'm asking for, I'm not clearly articulating because the output doesn't equal what I'm asking for. So then I go into a prompt generator and get some ideas about like, how can I be more specific? How can I give more detail? How can I set the parameters? And I suppose those structures that you run through, it really clearly outlines what to include, what not to include, how to structure it, whatever else you might want into a really detailed instruction. And that seems to then get me a better outcome.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, those prompt generators likely, like, they run on AI, and it's basically AI teaching you how to use AI, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I guess they'll be using probably a similar structure, but they'll be using their own version of it. And it'll be searching for different keywords, because I mean, that's what ChatGPT looks at and different AI models look at. They look at the different bits and then they connect them all together. And then when it's creating your response, it's again putting those little bits and just predicting what the next best word to put in is. So even one small word change, as you were talking about in that sort of prompt generation, one small word change from big to massive to humongous completely changes the way that ChatGPT might be looking at it. Because, I mean, the way AI works is it's a huge network or web of different information points. And let's say big is on one side of the point. Massive might be pretty close and small might be further away. And then flower could be way off in the distance. So even if you are changing only small words, massive might put you closer to a whale, whereas big might put you closer to a horse. Who knows what the way that the AI is actually looking at it. But the small word changes in your prompting can actually make a pretty big difference, simply because of how the web of AI's database actually is formed and how it uses it to predict what the next word is.
Yeah, that's really great as well. Okay, so if I'm to summarize how to write the best prompt, what I've learned from you today would be that you need to first be really clear about what you want to achieve. You need to be specific, treat the AI like your employee, and include what you don't want. And then I'll add in what I said about getting checklists and, like, you know, grading it back to continue to iterate till you find a better solution. Is there anything else that I've missed that you think is really important when we're talking about, you know, writing the best prompts in a way that's going to get you the best outcome?
Yeah. So goal, context, what you don't want, grading. I would say the type of output, maybe add that in there as well. The format you want it in, because I mean, for my little framework that I created, I asked it to do a little visual for me. So I don't know if you'll be able to see. I'll send it to you, but it's basically just visualized the prompting thing that it created for me. And so I used the framework to say, output it as a visualized document that I could, like, put on my Instagram or whatnot, or put on the front page of a blog post. And it created me a little visual. And then I also said in the next message, now just explain this like I'm going to be on a podcast or something like that. And it gave me like 2 completely different outputs. So add output in there, I reckon.
Yeah, that's good advice too. So what would be your advice for someone who is starting to experiment with AI for the first time? Where do they go from here? They're starting to do some prompts, they're playing around. What else should they be doing?
I would say, and I'm probably a bit biased because I'm working a lot with AI and automation specifically, but automation is going to be a huge thing, and AI powered automation is the next step. So looking at those parts of your business that are really time consuming and trying to figure out if it's the tech that's slowing you down or if it's the people that's slowing you down is probably a really important thing to look at. So, I mean, in the case of prompting and AI, if you're looking at your marketing team and they're not using AI already, which is probably pretty unlikely, but if they're not using it, how can they use it to speed up the process? If you're looking at your operations team and they're spending a lot of time on the different documents, what things can they change that will increase efficiency and decrease the amount of time they're spending on these tasks? And it's basically searching for ways that you can optimize and make your business more efficient by having a bit of a better understanding of what the capabilities of AI and tech are. I think that's probably the most important thing. And that's probably my number one message at OptieaseAI, is really just to try and teach people what the capabilities are and where they can use it in their business to make themselves more efficient. And I'm sure you're all over the consulting side with making people as efficient as possible. So, I mean, if you have any other ideas for ways that they can be efficient, yeah, it's really just about trying to save time.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it is that. I think to begin with, most people that I'm talking to are still using ChatGPT to answer their emails and haven't quite graduated past that. And I was talking to a lovely lady the other day, and she was like, I am an advanced AI user. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. And I was like, so what do you do with AI? And she was like, well, I talk to it every day. And I was like, and what do you like? I was expecting, agents and automations and, a whole lot. And she was like, oh no, I put my emails in and it replies. And I was like, okay. But for her, that was advanced. And that kind of makes me laugh because it's so powerful. But I think the biggest thing that at least the people I'm speaking to are challenged with is where to start. And so I think often it's just one case study, like one case use, right? What's one thing in your business you can actually use AI to automate and take off your plate, and not have to worry about it again. And it might not be having to set up an agent, but if you are writing 50 LinkedIn posts a month, can you automate that? Or if you are having a whole lot of I can't think of another example, but we don't want to use things with participants' data potentially, but it could be other things. So maybe it is proofreading documentation, or maybe it is, for what we do, we use it to crawl the internet to look for changes and then alert us when there's changes in things. That's really helpful. Look for trends, look for other things that could there be opportunities in our businesses. So I think if another thing that we've recently done, which is applicable to all businesses, is I use the profit first methodology in my business for our accounts and our bookkeeping. And we have a fortnightly meeting, me and my assistant Ruby. We sit down and we have a spreadsheet where we track cash flow forecasts and we have a look at money going in and going out. And we've managed to automate almost that process. So we've got a little agent that sits on top that pulls information from Xero, analyzes that data and pushes it to a Google spreadsheet for us, so that I don't have to wait till our Tuesday meeting. I can log into this spreadsheet at any time and see a very crude dashboard that tells me where things are sitting. We've also created dashboards where we pull data out of our CRM and have a look at things like if you've sent a proposal and the proposal has or hasn't been viewed, you can have a look at, what are your rates around, if you look at your whole sales process and you break that down to how many leads in, who's been contacted, who didn't contact, who turned up, who didn't turn up, who got a proposal, who read it. That whole sales pipeline, we've managed to use AI to pull the data. Well, we've used automation to pull the data into a spreadsheet and then have a little AI that has a look at that data and then gives us a report about where we're sitting. So I think for us, that saves us probably 10 hours a fortnight of us having to manually pull that data in. But more than that, it actually gives me as a business owner confidence of where, transparency at any point in time on where our dollars are at. And so for me, it was a case study of, okay, I want to use AI tools. How do we start? Well, what are the problems that are taking us too long that AI could actually solve?
I mean, are you using Looker Studio, or have you heard of Looker Studio?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's certainly one software that we've looked at where you can pull your information. And I mean, I would say the number one easiest way for people to actually automate or use AI in their business is probably just to make sure that they're actually using their current softwares properly.
Yeah.
Because pretty much every single person that we've come across will be like, oh, hey, like, how's it going? We're going to look to put some AI and some automation into your business. How are you guys going with this? And they're like, oh, this software is really bad. It doesn't do this. It doesn't do that. And we're like, it actually does do that anyways. How have you not got this set up? You've been running for 3 years now, and you haven't actually got your CRM set up properly. And so I would say even just going back to those different softwares you're using and seeing if they do have API capabilities. Because I mean, something as simple as pulling across information from your CRM to Xero is going to be saving immense amounts of time. And we've come across businesses who claim that it doesn't do that. And it does, they just haven't got it set up properly. So in terms of a really actionable step that can save a huge amount of time, it's not even AI really. It's just making sure your current systems are good. Because then once you've got that baseline, then you can look towards how you can use that information that's now flowing through your systems properly. Because as soon as it's shifting from your CRM to Xero, all it takes is a little chatbot in the middle to grab that information and go, hey, here's your cash flows. Hey, this is what's happening at the moment with this invoice. This is what's happening with this invoice. Oh, this invoice has not been paid yet. Maybe you should send them an email. And having something like that. But that's sort of the second step. So making sure current systems are running smoothly and are actually optimized is probably step one, or step zero even.
Yeah.
Step one might be looking towards what you're doing with that dashboarding, with the setting up those LinkedIn posts, setting up those Instagram or those Facebook posts. And that's sort of the baseline level things where you're looking at the marketing side of things, the reporting side of things. I would say, again, this is probably because I'm a bit biased from my perspective, but the baseline level of having your own server would be looking at something like your onboarding process and is your data actually going into your CRM effectively? How long does it take to actually onboard a client? If it's more than an hour or two, maybe have a look at that and see if there's any way that you can do it better. So there's, I guess, two different paths you can take, whether you're looking to set up your own servers or whether you're looking to just use those online free available AIs.
Yeah. And I think starting, so from a business perspective, I'm drawn towards let's start with our lowest hanging fruit and solve the biggest problem. But actually that might not be the best way to start. I like to jump all in, but I'm, quite comfortable with tech. I guess if you were just starting, maybe something like marketing is a great place to start because it's quite low risk. There's not really that much that could go wrong there. And you can get comfortable with the tech, build that digital literacy and that comfort level, and then move on to, if we look at a participant journey, maybe we start with marketing, then with sales. And by the time you've done that, you're comfortable with the tools, then you can start investing more heavily into things like the onboarding process, all of the documentation, the incidents, complaints, exit processes, those type of things. Once you're gaining those skills, also not just yourself, but also rolling those things out and thinking about that digital transformation for your workforce and your workers and the end users of the tech.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a step-by-step. I think rushing into it, it's the reason why 80% of AI implementation fails. 80% fail. Only 20% of people who try and use AI, it actually succeeds for them. And it's because people rush into those big projects and think it's going to save everything, but they don't have that baseline level yet. Yeah. So for us at OptieaseAI, and I think for most tech people in the industry, the focus should be on getting that baseline, making sure people have an understanding of what its capabilities are, and then shifting into that, okay, now let's completely transform the business. Because that is what it can do, but people just need to understand that it's step by step, and you can't be rushing into things.
Yeah. That was wonderful. If someone wants to reach out to you to get some help with AI or to ask you any questions, what's the best way for them to contact you?
LinkedIn is probably the quickest and easiest. If not, then have a look at our website. You can book in a meeting with us as well. Anything OptieaseAI, it'll eventually make its way to us, but I'd say LinkedIn is probably the easiest.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tania.
In 30 minutes, you just learned what most business owners will spend months trying to figure out on their own. Want to keep that momentum going? Join our free AI Apprentice community at providercollective.com.au. Hundreds of business owners testing tools and sharing real wins. Come and be an AI apprentice with me. Let's become masters together. I'll see you next week, or better yet, I'll see you inside the community today.